You're listening to Two Chunks and a Hunk, a movie podcast where we give pumps and dumps.
Hello and welcome to Two Chunks and a Hunk. My name is Jordan Wonders, and this week I am your chunk.
I'm Doge, and at my signal, unleash Chunk.
Yes.
And I'm Carter. The beating heart of Rome is not the marble of the Senate. It is the hunk of the Colosseum.
Oh, very good. Very
yeah.
good. So I know that you're the hunk because this is the movie that you have brought for us today.
Yes.
But also why?
Also because, man, I knew how much of a commitment Two Chunks would be, but I didn't know it would be this much. But the fact that Two Chunks was able to pay my way to actually go to Rome.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Last summer to be able to, or last fall to be able to go out there and kind of be on site to have some good comparisons.
Well, and now we're going to cut to a pre-recorded portion of the podcast where Carter recorded his review of this movie from Rome, from the Colosseum.
Rome, in the Colosseum. Just the biggest echoes.
And like the crazy thing, and I kept trying to tell Carter this the whole time, all you have to do for Rome is just like go outside of your cell phone carrier's area and you'll like accrue the charges.
And then it's just roaming.
And then you're roaming.
When you started talking and you started in that voice, I really hoped that wasn't going to be the joke.
Certainly was.
Oops.
So
we were there.
Sorry to disappoint.
Something we decided on a long time ago was that those of us that are bringing the director will kind of drive the conversation. Does that also mean that I kind of do the lead up to what we're reviewing today?
Maybe. But I do have a question.
Yikes.
Because that's a lot of responsibility.
I just have something that's been burning a hole in my brain, and I need us to talk about it real quick before we jump into this movie.
Is this going to be another bad joke?
No, this isn't a joke.
Okay.
This really isn't. And I actually want your real opinions on this. This has nothing to do with the movie. I just can't get it off my head.
Oh, okay.
Out of my head? That's the one.
That's fine.
So I know that we actually have some listeners that are like from far and wide, which is pretty cool. We record in Texas, and in Texas, Whataburger is kind of a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Whataburger, the fast food restaurant. When I say the phrase quintessential Whataburger breakfast item, what are you two thinking of?
Honey butter chicken biscuit.
HBCB, yeah.
Thank you. I felt
Why?
like I was
Who said
taking
something
crazy
different?
pills. I've had
Someone say
multiple
taquitos?
Yes.
Huh.
To which I say they're fine, but it's just a breakfast taco. Like there's nothing iconic
Was this
about
person older than you?
Yeah.
I think it's a generational thing because that's what my dad says too.
Really?
Yeah. If you were to ask my dad and any of his friends that question, it would be taquitos. Because I don't know how long they've had the honey butter chicken biscuit.
Some of the people that I asked that were older than me were maybe like 6 or 7 years older at most. And it was just crazy to me because the Whataburger taquito, it's delicious.
Yeah.
But is it, I mean,
It's just
I could hand you
taquito.
that in like a Sonic breakfast taco, and I bet most people, I'm not saying everybody, but I think most people would just say, what a good breakfast taco.
Same.
The Sonic one's way better. The Supersonic breakfast burrito is way better than the
I
Whataburger
agree
taquito.
with that.
Oh,
That's
way
crazy.
better. Way
But
better.
I'm glad-
You kidding me?
okay.
There's tater tots.
I'm glad
and
that we're all on the
jalapenos.
same page. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm glad that
That's
we're
pretty
all
good.
on the same page with the honey butter chicken biscuit because
We are.
my heart was breaking for these people.
Yeah,
and
that's wild.
I just wanted them to see the error of their ways.
In this conversation, I've decided it wouldn't be right. I've really been reflecting on it. It wouldn't be right for me to intro the title. It just doesn't feel like.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I want you
Okay.
to do it.
All right.
Was that your plan all along?
No, I just wanted to talk about Whataburger.
Distract Carter with the chicken biscuit.
That's all it takes.
It's the 1-2 punch.
The classic combo.
Well, much like the breakfast taquito was the downfall of many a friendship for me,
Wow. Okay.
Rome had a downfall.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it came shortly after the occurrences of this movie, which of
Yeah.
course is called Gladiator.
Well,
We got there.
Brilliant.
That's why you handed the reins back to Papa, huh?
Yeah, that's exactly why.
For that sharp mind.
Oh, man. So my director is Ridley Scott, Sir Ridley Scott.
Yay!
And we're not going to keep calling him Mr. Sir.
I'm just laughing because I reversed his name in my head.
Skidly Rot.
Skidly Rot. Oh,
Yeah.
gross.
Sounds like a jazz singer.
Do not demean him.
Skidly Rot. Doesn't he play bass for Kid Rock?
He might. Or that's just a type of like honky tonk. That's like the scatting, but it's honky tonk scatting.
Skidly Rot.
Do a little
Skidly
Skidly Rot. Well, count on man to the friend on me on the bone lip. That was just me scatting as a hillbilly. Wow.
In
This,
your
though,
world,
honestly, though.
is it somebody running an auction?
Stop. Sold.
It's
Scared of a random 5 and 7 10. Sold. But remember though, this is a movie podcast.
It is,
Yes.
isn't it? Wow. I'm sweaty now.
Yeah, for sure. So Gladiator.
Yeah.
I had forgotten that the very beginning of this was the kind of iconic scene that we see throughout, which was the
wheat.
would you call it a dream sequence at this point? What is that? It's kind of happening with
I gotta
Daydream.
synoptize you, Captain.
Dude, yes, man. I got this responsibility to like deal with the flow, and I can't handle it.
It's okay.
Yeah, this is like my one thing, and then I'll come in and say like one
I'm
sentence
forever the
later.
rookie of this podcast, by the way. I will never not be the rookie.
We'll catch up.
I hope.
Does you know what to do?
Gladiator tells the story of a successful Roman general, Gemeril, who is
Gemeril Lagasse was
Gemeril
his name.
Lagasse.
Bam!
Every time he swings the sword. Bam! Oh.
What a weird vibe.
Yeah, I love it.
It's
I
I'm
love it.
loving it. It's so good.
This is the morning vibe.
Yeah, it really is.
I'm picturing the scene with Lucius where he's going, there. Every time he swings the sword, he's just bam, 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 bam. Oh, okay. That's very good.
So Gladiator tells the story of a former Roman general. He sets out to exact vengeance against the corrupt emperor who murdered his family and sent him into slavery.
Very good.
That gives
That's
us
a
room to
synopsis.
play. That's a short
Yeah.
synopsis. It
A lot
gives
of
us room to play. The sandbox is huge now, and I haven't used up very much of the sand.
Very big sandbox. I think before we even go into, because I think what's going to be fun about this, and I'm glad I have the first one so we can kind of try this out, because
Yeah.
we've never done anything like this.
Yeah.
A, even bringing something separately to the table, but then B, trying to have all this synergized together.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
one of the things that really impresses me about Ridley Scott is he just kind of does whatever genre he's interested in at the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's not really known, even though, you'll get things like Blade Runner and stuff like that. He's a sci-fi
Sure.
guy, The Martian, one of the most recent big
Sure.
hits of his.
I feel like
forgot that was him.
I feel like sci-fi is home base for
He's
him,
in the science.
certainly.
So in 2007, he was inducted into the Science Fiction Hall of Fame.
I love
So
it.
he is there,
I love
right?
it.
But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean he couldn't just make a war epic that won 5 Oscars. And so that's why I was like, that's why I wanted to be able to flex Ridley's muscles with
Yeah.
this, because there's lots of muscles in this.
Well, and he is a quote of talking about, because this is a genre often called sword and sandals, which
Yeah.
tends to be exactly what it sounds like it is. But he talked about how he wanted this to not be a typical sword and sandals movie,
Like
of
feeding the grapes.
Yeah,
and-
like he mentioned specifically lounging around and eating grapes with like palm fronds and things like
and that's
that.
such a good transition, because that's such his, like, I think I would describe, and I don't want it to dilute like his brilliance, but I think Ridley Scott is really good at gritty.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Because even with his views of the future and the past, there's a realism to it, even in sci-fi, to where
Yeah,
it's like not
kind of-
everything is
kind of a
pretty and
dirtiness.
beautiful. And like Ridley Scott, you don't really think of a lot of like bright colors, like whites and stuff. And
Right.
like, so we start out in Germania in this battle. And a fun story about that, I don't know if you guys read, was this forest was about to just be like completely burned down. Like it was, they were just going to, what is it, deforesting? Where like they were just going to destroy it. And so he was like, oh, he like absolutely jumped on this opportunity. He's like, I'd love to film a battle scene here. And how about you let me burn it
Let's
down?
just go ahead and burn it while we're there.
Can I burn this
Wow.
forest down
Yeah.
for you, England?
That's
so
amazing.
Isn't that awesome?
super, super cool. And so I'm actually, I think a lot of the times when people think about Gladiator, they think about Braveheart. I do personally like Gladiator
interesting.
more.
I also
because
do.
these
I
were
do too.
so 1994 was Braveheart. And then we had in 99, technically 2000 was
Yeah.
Gladiator.
Yeah.
Well, and they share some story beats.
Absolutely.
Wronged revolutionary
yes.
fights.
I mean-
and spoiler, ultimately dies in
Yeah.
It's
a power
the
struggle.
This is kind of rounds of the trifecta of the historical epic subgenre of the Dad Saturday movies.
Yes,
Amazing
100%.
TNT. Like I
TNT,
almost
yeah.
was able to watch, and because I don't technically have a TV provider because we use PlayStation View, I almost was able to download the TNT app to watch Gladiator
Yeah.
for free.
Yes,
But-
yeah,
but-
it sits alongside movies to me like Braveheart and The Patriot of like
Yeah.
those are the historical Dad Saturday movies.
Mel Gibson was almost cast as Maximus.
I did read that.
So that would have really rounded it out. But to
for real.
me, and Carter, I'm assuming particularly you would agree with this as well. This is the strongest of the three.
I really do think so.
me.
I think so, too.
honestly do think so. And that's because there was more stuff in there that's memorable. I think with Braveheart and Patriot, it's like there's
freedom.
Yeah, there's definitely windows to where I would go use the bathroom or like.
Yeah.
But with this one, not just because I was doing this for the podcast, it was like pause, get some water, come back, play. You know, it was like it didn't feel like that. And that's just because I think the acting across the board is stronger than any of the other movies.
I agree with that.
But we have Russell Crowe, who was great. I mean, he won an Oscar for this film. So this did win 5 Oscars.
Well, and this was kind of in his hottest moment, wasn't it? I mean, this is sort of him at his
Beautiful Mind
career peak.
was...
Yeah.
So he had 3 straight years where he was nominated for Best Actor.
Yeah.
And this was the one where he won. And so The Insider was a year before, then Gladiator, then Beautiful Mind. And so Russell Crowe kind of owned things for a while.
Yeah.
Kind of croned things.
He kind of croned things for a while. But this battle is great.
It is.
And I think it's shot really well. And I love just the massive expanse of all of that. You have the... whoever the messenger would have been to go like see if they wanted to not fight, and we've got our answer. He's headless, and this kind of gives you a vibe too of already of any of these war epics are rated R. I mean, it's gory,
right.
but it's not gory to the extent of like just kind of over the top Kill Bill kind of things.
Right.
It's just like
not much
trying to scratch the surface of what war looks like.
Sure.
But Maximus, I loved his. So the scene that we get at the very beginning, I think, when he's just looking at the bird and it just kind of flies off. They kept trying to. So this was an interesting movie because a lot of people weren't agreeing. We had a lot of like big-headed people in the production process of this.
Yeah.
And the writer kind of got pushed around a little bit.
Man, that sucks.
But they were trying to find a way to make Maximus a little more relatable because he is kind of this cold, hard, like he also needs to be able to feel like invincible.
Right.
Yeah.
Like kind of how Denzel Washington always is. Bruce Willis always is. It's like, I don't know who he's supposed to be, but he can probably kick anyone's butt and not care. Right.
Yeah.
So that little bird scene was one of the first things that they filmed and they just kept it.
Yeah.
He was literally just watching a bird, and him and Ridley were like, let's do it. So Russell Crowe had a really close relationship with Ridley Scott and Richard Harris.
Yeah.
Who we'll see in just a little bit, who does, I kept thinking like Dumbledore, just watching the whole battle up there.
For real.
Yeah.
First Dumbledore.
But this was great. It's kind of hard. You don't want to dissect a complete battle. I had some favorite parts. I love the fact that he's saying you're in Elysium. Like if you're out in the field, there's some really epic lines. I think we always remember, "Are you not entertained?"
Yeah.
But there's a lot more great movie lines in
right
this.
after "Don't worry, you're in Elysium." I think he says, "What we do now echoes in eternity."
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Such a good line.
Amazing.
Well, and like,
you're already dead. You're out there.
Yeah.
The start of this movie sets the tone for the rest of the movie, which is far, far, far more. So I have 2 separate phases of my life with this movie. Watching it with my dad as a kid because it's awesome and has swords in it.
Yeah.
And watching it as a late teen and like adult and like beginning to appreciate it for what it is. The things that I overlooked as a kid are how much it is like almost an art house film at the same time as being like it is so metaphorical and like visually metaphorical and like
the scenes that you get to of like the quick time lapse of all that kind of stuff too is not out of place for Ridley Scott, and it wasn't out of place for Gladiator, but that's when it's like Blade Runner. You made Blade Runner, right? To do things that are like, what does this mean? Like there's so much symbolism in there. But I agree.
There's an extra level of artistry that I don't think the movie needs, but I think it's much better for it.
Yeah, it's not harmed by it, certainly.
Yeah. No. I'm saying like, I'm very glad that it's there. It's something that like, you don't have to do those kind of almost dream sequences, afterlife stuff to tell this story, but it's so much stronger if you do.
So the scene of him in the wheat field from the beginning was filmed for the end, and then they decided to...
Yeah, go ahead and splice it up there.
Yeah. Do you think that's to indicate that his death is always before him? Like he's always... My thought goes to Hamilton. I imagine death so much it feels more like a memory. Like he's conscious of that. Do you think that's why that's there?
Right. I think so. Because I mean, we start the movie literally talking about like what we do here echoes in eternity. I mean, he is so like in what's the word I'm looking for? Afterlife focused throughout this whole movie. that I feel like, I think you're right, that this is to say, like, it's inevitable for him.
And then
I think that's how he feels.
Digimon will come along to be able to talk about, he's kind of there to have the conversation about the afterlife. And I think that's great. And so we get through the war, we win without, there's a ton of loss there. But this is so cool. I can't think of movies, and there's probably some war movies that do this, but you'll get some, it's hard to do beginning of the movie character development during a battle scene. But somehow we kind of get to know Maximus a little bit. And that would be anyone who wore a star or, medals and stuff in a war. You're like, oh, that's a leader. But to see kind of how he was kind of stick with me, and then we'll have an allusion to what happens later in the arena in terms of those that fought under him and stuff. But so they win the battle. I love big Germania general guy, the barbarian dude with the massive club, who it took a lot of people to bring him down. But there's some fun battle scenes. How did y'all feel about, and I think there was some trivia about, I think they were running out of daylight.
Yeah.
And
for the blurry effect.
Yeah, how do you feel about the blurry effect?
My super dump is the slow motion technique. This is different from the blurred effect. The blurred effect is we're shooting at a very low frame rate. We're duplicating those frames. That's so that we can raise the exposure of the camera to get a consistent lighting profile across the whole scene. But this does a slow motion effect that I think I also super dumped this in Return of the King. It's the same kind of really stuttery slow motion effect where you don't shoot extra frames, but you just play back the frames that you shot much slower.
It's almost stop motion.
It is, and there's sections like that. Those scenes that's cut right up next against a traditional slow motion sequence shot in 60 frames per second, played back at 40% speed. So I don't know why we did the really stuttery one. And I think it was a stylistic thing at the time. It dates. That's the only thing that really dates this movie to me.
Yeah, I see that too. It's a dump for me. It was kind of because it was. I don't know if it was very necessary. I think it had enough going for it. But so he's walking away from the battlefield, and people are chanting Maximus throughout this movie, right? Like the world loves Maximus Meridius, and so he's coming to the tent to see Marcus Aurelius, and so the scratches that were on Russell Crowe's face at that time, that is not. He actually
he ran into a tree.
Like on the horse, ran through branches and had stitches and stuff too. And so this movie beat the crap out of Russell Crowe.
Yes.
Is that the thing where he lost feeling in his finger?
In his forefinger.
That's crazy.
From sword
and
fighting.
Aggravated an Achilles injury, and popped his hip out of socket, popped his shoulder tendons out. He did so much stuff in this movie because he kept insisting on going harder and harder.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which
that's really cool.
I don't know a lot about Russell Crowe. He seems to me a very talented dude, bro. And so I totally get the idea that he would be hit me again.
And then at that, an Australian dude, bro.
Yeah.
Which is
he's wild.
Way more legitimate than an American dude, bro.
I think if we don't start talking about Commodus, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get there. So I do love Richard Harris, and I love the interaction that he has with Maximus.
Richard Harris is excellent.
Anything that he has to say is just delivered so very well. But do you want to talk? I guess the first we see of Commodus is in the coach on the way to the battlefield.
Right. And he is immediately characterized as sort of late to the party on purpose to avoid the fight. Yeah.
Yep.
Super pump.
Really?
Joaquin Phoenix, Commodus, super pump.
Yeah.
That's mine too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's also my super pump. He is just so ew. I think he's an underrated villain. I was looking. I was certain he was going to be on an AFI top 50 villains.
I can't believe he's not.
He's not there.
He is horrendous.
Maximus made number 50 for the top heroes.
Really?
But Commodus doesn't even make it at all. And maybe it's just because he's just so slimy. I don't know. But that's a good villain to me.
To me, this is Joaquin Phoenix. This role is what I think of when I think of Joaquin.
And this was one of his first big movies.
He's a baby in this movie.
He's 26, and he'll do Signs 2 years later. And
cool. Well, I'm 25 and I'm doing this.
Yeah. So same career path.
I got time. I got a year.
He is so good in this movie.
Also a big pump to Connie Nielsen for sharing so many scenes with him and delivering that so well. She was actually the go-to for a lot of people on set in terms of historical stuff about Rome. She's just been fascinated forever.
The ring that she's wearing, did you guys see this?
Yeah.
She found it
She found that at a thrift shop. It's 2,000 years old.
Yeah, what
That's
thrift shop are you
crazy.
at?
Well,
that's amazing.
Isn't she Swedish or Danish
think
or
she's
something?
Danish.
Yeah, maybe they just got crazy
Is it
antique shops.
Lucia?
And
Or Lucia. How is her name pronounced? Do they ever say her name very much?
I honestly don't know.
I think they say it once. I think
Everyone
it's
calls her
Lucia.
sister or daughter.
Okay. So I'm just going to call her Connie. But
Connie.
Connie, our great characters, Maximus, Commodus, Connie.
Connie.
And Connie.
And yeah, they do so well, but they make it there. And Commodus entering in when all these guys are like bloody and they just battled, and he's like, "What did I miss?" Like literally,
Did I miss
literally
the fight?
Yeah, did I miss the fight? As
And
he like jumps
Marcus
really
Aurelius says,
like big time off the horse.
"You
and
missed the war."
Yeah. Oh,
I think that scene characterizes Commodus for the rest of the movie.
Yep.
And what's impressive to me is that from the get-go, everything that we see him do, everything that he does and is for the rest of the movie can be summed up as that moment.
Yeah. I think a lot of it.
The coward who came late to war on purpose.
Yep. For sure.
I would disagree with that. I would say I would love to skip to the scene of him and Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say
The death.
that to me, that scene is my super pump. I feel like that is the heart of Commodus. Of I don't know the way that he's like crying. He never felt his father's love, and so he's doing everything he can to make up for that.
Also a good point.
Which I guess that's probably the underlying heart of the scene you were talking about.
Yeah.
This to me feels like such a clear distillation of the reasons that this guy is absolutely off his rocker.
Well, and that scene is, I think, perfect, not only for Joaquin acting, just outstanding.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But also, I think you're absolutely right. The like, why do you hate me?
Yeah.
I'm not good enough. I have virtue. And Marcus, in the moment, realizing I have led my son to believe that I hate him simply because he's not my favorite thing in the world. And then it's too late to do anything because he's gone.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. And you never see, like, I feel like he's such a unique villain because you never see somebody a villain like that reduced to the point of tears, of like feeling so powerless and so helpless until the second that he decides, you know what? I'm in charge. I'm going to kill this guy and I'm the emperor now.
Yeah. There's a lot of scenes, but this one specifically felt like this is what got him the Oscar nomination.
Yes, I think so too.
And he passed out after that scene.
Yeah, I did read that.
Wow, really?
He just passed out because he was using so much energy. Another fun story.
Wow.
So Richard Harris and Russell Crowe hit it off from the start on set. And Joaquin, coming in as a 26-year-old, like confessed to Russell Crowe, like, I am 100% intimidated. This is a $100 million movie. I don't like having doubts, right? Which is not the Joaquin Phoenix of today, who you feel like could just come own everything.
Right.
Like, he's like, sure, iconic role, I'll play Joker. You know, just different random stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Russell Crowe talked to Richard Harris, and Richard Harris was like, basically, let's rough him up a little bit. And so they just pissed him off. Like, they made him so mad. Like, they would jab at him all the time and just be like, you know what? You really shouldn't be here. And then when they would take him out for drinks and stuff, they'd like get him drinking enough and then just get him like loose and just furious. And then he just took it to set. And Joaquin would later say, like, I realized what they were doing.
Wow.
And that like fueled him even more.
Dang.
And so he was like, this is
crazy.
so cool.
That's
right.
crazy.
So,
all right, I know that sort of the beginning of this movie has a lot of setup, but now that we have spent roughly half of our podcast in the first 20 minutes of this movie,
sure,
it is time to start talking about Gladiator. For real.
For real.
yeah.
What happens, Carter?
So Commodus has killed Marcus Aurelius. Basically, there's a hit on Maximus.
Mm-hmm.
He gets away, which is a cool scene. Only
Frost?
to get home in time to see a really gruesome death. And
there's a surprising amount of snot.
There is.
That was his idea.
Shocking amount of snot. Was
Snot.
it really?
Yeah.
Was it
They call
real
it a snot fest.
It was supposed to be,
was.
he was supposed to just fall and like have like a heroic
Stoic.
tear. And Russell Crowe said, no, like if I'm coming home to my wife and son hanging and burnt, like I'm going to be
crucified,
blubbering.
Yeah. And speaking of Snotfest, this is the little kid from Beautiful, Life is Beautiful.
Really?
Same little boy in the concentration camp where his dad was the guy who won the Oscar. So he's been the little kid of two dads that grieve and win an Oscar.
Wow.
And his wife is actually Ridley Scott's longtime partner and now wife since 2015.
That's crazy.
And she's in almost all his movies since 2000.
Wow.
But yeah, he's dead. He's just passed out from grief and hunger, gets picked up by some slavers. And then I think we're introduced to Hansu.
Yeah.
Digimon Hansu. And
I didn't recognize him at first. I feel like when I see him, he usually is a lot like leaner.
Like Blood Diamond?
This makes sense. Like his face is a lot pointier.
Well, he's jacked for this for sure.
Yeah, he is beefy in this.
Jacked
movie.
for sure. And then he's kind of starting to take care of him. The maggot scene was like, what?
Yeah,
that's something I
nasty one.
vividly remember.
That's
And
yucky.
then,
We meet Proximo.
Yep. They're sold to Proximo.
Who, as much as Richard Harris loved Russell Crowe, Oliver Reed hated Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Even at one point on set, they were going to fight. He said, "Fight me, let's fight."
Wow.
He
hated
also
each
told
other.
Ridley Scott, "I'm done after 5 every day."
Yeah.
Did you read that?
Yes, dude.
He said,
was
"I'll be
such
in your movie, but at 5, my life is my own."
It's like,
Wow.
okay, Mr.
Well,
Oliver Reed.
he was like a long time old school movie star by that
Oh,
point.
for sure. And so is Richard Harris. So that's why,
Right.
whatever.
There were certain shots of Oliver Reed that looked like they were from the 10 Commandments.
Oh,
The Charlton
absolutely.
Heston
Yeah.
movie.
He's just got this like leathery tan.
Yeah.
That is just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so so Oliver Reed died during the filming of this movie.
Yeah, near the ending.
Near the end of this movie. And so
The
they had to
scene where
reshoot
he
some
comes to
stuff.
the gate and tells Maximus to go at the very end
Yeah.
is not real.
Yeah.
They have CGI'd his head onto a
you
devil's
serious?
body. It looks so. This is a great transition for me, real quick. In contrast to how great that looks, there are some moments. I'm particularly talking about the birds here. The way the birds look in front of the Coliseum, and they're just shown
Some of
for
the
different
landscape
times.
shots of the Coliseum, it's like they forgot to simulate a camera in those
Right.
CG stuff. And
They
so
just
there's
found a
no
painting.
depth of field.
Right.
Yeah. It's
and
pretty
then
interesting.
That and the birds is so weird. It's not my super dump. It's just something I really don't
Yeah.
like. So it's very strange.
It's
but,
crazy how good the body double VFX face thing looks in this and how bad it looks in Fast and Furious.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. Many years later.
Well,
Yeah.
Torchlight, Dark at Night. That's
Yeah.
the only thing I can think of. But
Are those lyrics?
yeah, as we're,
Death Cab?
as we're transitioning into Maximus as a gladiator, I think we should also transition into podcast as an announcement time.
Hater.
It's Shout Announcements! Welcome to Shout Announcements, the part of the show where we give shout outs and make announcements. It's time to do just that. Our first shout out is going to go to Waxbase in Tyler Station. It's where we are right now. We're drinking their coffee. We're doing work in it. It's a co-working space where you can get work done, meet with people. It's in Dallas. Check them out. Also, we want to give a shout out to Podbean. We pay you money and we put stuff on you. Mostly our podcast. That's right. This one. Podbean.
I always jump the gun.
I want to give a shout out to Jordan Green. He sent in pumps and dumps for Gladiator, and I, hand to my heart, swear that I did not read this before right now. His super pump is Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus. So that's an opinion he
Natch.
shares with the three of us.
Sure.
His super dump is the bad slow-mo sequence during the opening battle.
Wow.
Hey, that's somebody else who shares that opinion.
Wow. I have got I think we have a super-duper pump.
Yes.
Not that there's levels of super pump, but this was above and beyond. So Sheridan Gill, big shout out to Sheridan.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
She is an old connection to Lampasas, where I'm from, but she made an assignment for her class, like an extra credit thing for kids to listen to our podcast. And that means the world to us on many levels, that
Yeah.
it's within the realm of education, that it's younger students listening to the podcast. And thank you all for those students to your reviews.
Yes, thank you guys.
For the podcast. And for those of you that continue to review. Yeah, I don't know if it's a disservice to the podcast to not be surprised if we ever kind of reach like a plateau for a little while, like to have like 2 or 3 days of like, oh, that's not quite what I expected in terms of downloads and stuff.
Right.
But it has like, it's not slowing down, and it's
Yeah.
just so exciting. And that is,
we are growing both in downloads and reviews,
Absolutely.
which is huge.
And
Absolutely.
listeners, that's your fault. So thank you.
that is your fault. 100% your fault. And so amidst this series of directors, we're going to have a new one come up. With
do.
Jordan's boy. Tell
Yeah,
us about
so
him.
next week is my movie, My Director. First movie from my director, and that director is Denis Villeneuve, whose name I had
Villeneuve.
to look up, so I finally
We
know how
will
to pronounce
be
it.
reviewing Téléphone Célibitude.
Denis
all
Villeneuve is the French-Canadian director responsible for many recent sci-fi and smash hits.
Yeah.
All your favorites
All
are
your
on this
favorites,
one.
all your big ones.
Favorites like
Awesome. Ball with the ball.
He
That one Limp Bizkit song.
the one of them.
Sorry.
He is my favorite director. I love his work, and the first movie that we're going to talk about from him is Prisoners from 2013. Very, very excited to both watch again and talk about this movie with you boys.
that's an intense one.
It is an intense one. Yeah, I would say that.
And then we don't even have to give the movie, but Doge, do you want to go ahead and give your director just so that we can start having conversations about these three?
Yeah, it's Stevie Spiels.
Stevie Spielberg.
Stevie Spiels is my guy.
It's awesome. Yeah.
So we're going to be excited to dive into that.
We got some cool movies coming out.
Yeah,
I'm really
I think
excited
we're
about this
realizing
coming out.
that a lot of the connections and the great conversations, like we don't even see coming. Like, it's not going to happen until we get there, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So,
Like all three of our directors have Harrison Ford in common, so figure that one out.
figure it out. It's up to you.
But I think that's the end of shout announcements, which means it's time for us to back to the show.
So we're back now, and it's time to actually be a gladiator. And so Maximus, in order to be a gladiator, is kind of trying to remove people knowing who he is.
Right.
Yeah.
So we do have a scene that's pretty important of him kind of cutting up his tattoo that says he was in the Legion in terms of fighting for Rome.
Gigagory.
Got a fun stat
Yeah,
for
it
you
looks
guys.
owie.
I'm going to give you a list of 5 individuals, okay? And I need you to decide if any of them need to be removed under one criteria. These are 5 people that I believe to be some form of a movie icon.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Richard Harris.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we keep him?
Mhm.
Hans Zimmer.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
For Jordan's list, if we have, are you saying we have to take one?
No,
or
you don't have to.
then no.
I'm saying,
Yeah,
do
no,
any
we-
of them qualify to not be there?
No, they should all
they're
be there.
all
How
movie
many
icons.
Oscars do the 5 of these guys have combined?
Golly. Over a dozen, I bet.
The limit does not exist.
2.
Wait.
Whoa, are you
Wait,
serious?
wait.
Hans Zimmer's only Oscar is Lion King. Russell Crowe's only Oscar is Gladiator. The rest have none.
Are you serious?
Ridley Scott has never won an Oscar. Ridley Scott has never won an Oscar.
Not for directing. If it was an Oscar, it was because it was his. It was like, so The Martian won for like writing and stuff, but he wasn't really a part of that
Right.
adapted screenplay. He
Yeah.
was just at the helm. But Ridley Scott hasn't won an Oscar.
I
That
am
is
in
crazy
disbelief.
to me.
Joaquin Phoenix has not won an Oscar.
That's
Hans
also
Zimmer has
crazy to
only
me.
won one.
One. Does that not blow your mind?
That's crazy to me.
I'm like,
The Hans Zimmer one's a little easier for
And
me
I
to
throw
believe.
Richard Harris in there
no
too.
way.
I throw Richard Harris in there too, and that's just because he's like, he is kind of like the old school
Yeah.
Michael Caine age type person.
Sure,
Yes.
yeah.
Like, but he's never won. And so I just thought that was wild because I kept looking as like, and it didn't take anything away from the fact that I picked this movie and that I love this movie
Yeah.
because it is surprising. And if anything, that adds to the fact of being like, wait, what?
Sure.
Like these guys?
Dude, that is wild.
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
Completely wild. And I bring that up because I start thinking about Hans Zimmer, and it's not the most popular, like just musical sequence that he's ever done because there's a lot of big popular things. But that kind of bum, 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 bum,
Yeah.
bum gives me the emotions.
Sure.
Like
Yes.
every time it's played, and it's kind of subtly in there because that's what you'll do. Like the same thing, like any Harry Potter movie, it's like bum, bum, ba-dum, bum. Is there a phrase for what your main,
Theme.
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
your
it's a
main theme
Yeah.
is?
So, like the Star Wars movies are a great example of this. You can go through and if you're paying attention, you can assign like, hey, here's Luke's theme, here's Leia's theme,
Right.
here's the Han
The
and Leia
Force
theme.
theme.
So that's
Here's the
Maximus
Force
theme?
So that's the Maximus theme.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they'll weave it into the different tracks in the soundtrack.
You know what the coolest theme in Gladiator is?
What?
The Pirates of the Caribbean theme.
The one from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Dude, that happens in not the first big battle, I don't
Yeah.
think.
No, it
happens-
is.
The chariot battle's not the first one, though,
No,
right?
no, I'm talking about against the barbarians at the
Oh, it
very
is?
beginning of
Yeah.
the movie. It's like
yeah.
gung, 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 like it.
So
But
very much. And
Hans
there's
Zimmer
even
is,
points.
I say notorious because he is, but he's notorious for reusing like pieces in other movies.
Yeah.
The biggest one, I think we might have even talked about it on the podcast before, but Home Alone and Harry Potter have
Oh, yeah.
songs in
Williams.
common. Oh, you're right. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
But it was even, because it even goes into, it's like, well, that's pirate. And but it keeps going because
Yeah.
it's like, ba-da-da-da-da, dun, And I'm just like, wait, what is happening
Yeah.
right now? I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Because Pirates is kind of given more credit for that than because that was its theme, right? It wasn't
the big
the
one.
the
So a
Maximus
lot of
theme.
times the reason that happens is because when directors are cutting like what's called a previs, like a pre-visualization of a scene, they're like editing scans of a storyboard in or something like that. They'll put a temp track in. And that's the reason all movie music starts to sound the same, is because they'll grab a temp track. Like when they were doing previs for Pirates, they grabbed a temp track from Gladiator. And Jerry Bruckheimer was like, you know what? I really actually love that music. Can you just do something really similar to that? And so that's why movie music is kind of a feedback loop of like,
Well, and they're both Hans Zimmer.
right. But that's what I'm
That
saying.
is
like,
so
there's-
interesting.
Rhythmically, there's things that are consistent across all movie soundtracks. Like there's the rhythmic pattern of the chanting from The Dark Knight Rises that was showing up in every single movie for like 5 years after that.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
true.
And it's because of temp tracks.
All of a sudden, every drum was like this, like gung 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 gung
Exactly.
gung 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 gung.
So
Yeah,
if you
true.
ever
That's a
want to
good
fall
point.
down a rabbit hole, read film composers talking about temp tracks. It's like kind of widely regarded as like this is the worst thing that could happen to our industry.
Interesting.
Oh, wow. So this first battle, I really do. There's a lot of great just scenes, but just to kind of, I think they kind of get you, they try and make you as intimidated as a gladiator would be walking into an arena. But
Sure.
the main guy who's just got this massive like ball and chain, what is it called? A star,
mace.
Flail.
like a flail. That
Oh,
you
I guess
just
a mace has a stick, right?
Mace is a stick.
woof,
Yep.
like around the front, and then you've got freaking Jake from State Farm. That Maximus is like, I'm getting away from this.
He gets
This dude
smooshed.
about to die,
Yeah.
and he's chained up to Turbo Man, who's like throughout the movie, he's like, I'll just cut his hand off
It's
so I can
crazy
fight
that they're
now.
his actual names. That
I
those are
know.
their real names.
Jake from State Farm
Jake
and
from State
Turbo
Farm and
Man.
Turbo Man.
That's
It's like, I
amazing.
love you, Maximus. I will fight for you, and Turbo Man. But their fight is great, and we get to see Digimon's chops and stuff. I also love that Russell Crowe he looks strong, but he is not cut.
He's not
he
like
is just
Thor. He doesn't look like Chris Hemsworth
No,
or like Henry
it's-
Cavill.
It's like the strongest dad you know.
He does look dad strong. He
Came
looks like
in
he's got dad
just
strength.
with that hair and everything. It's just like coming in and just kicking butt.
So
But-
I think we should blow through
Do
the
it.
Egyptian
yeah.
sort of gladiatorial combat. But the purpose here being Maximus wants to get back to Rome
Yes.
and come face to face with Commodus, but also he knows that it can't just be walk out and dispatch every enemy and walk back in.
Right.
Right.
He's got to put on a show,
The
which
people
is
have to love him.
which is the power
Which
of
is what
are you not
Proximo has
entertained?
told him to do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, I love the way that interacts. The way that we tell the story of Rome has to belong to the people is through the eyes of a gladiator who has to make sure that people are on his side.
Right.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Just the mob. They were often referred to as the
The
mob.
mob. Yeah.
And so we go to Rome. We do have a quick scene in the Senate of Commodus is in power now, and he is just even.
That super looks like a number 2 Ticonderoga pencil that he's writing with.
It
like it just looks
absolutely
like
does.
it just looks like a 2019 pencil.
What
My,
if?
my super dump for the movie was almost the sound effect they added in while he was spinning the sword on the ground and how inconsistent it is with how the sword spins.
Really?
It drove me nuts.
That is so funny. And we see kind of her, and I want to bring up real quick, Connie Nielsen's character. Another thing that Ridley Scott consistently does is very strong women.
Yes.
Almost all of his movies, whether they are a villain or they are a heroine, they are often in control. And she's essentially, it's alluded to that she is almost running Rome. Like Richard Harris's character, Aurelius even says, if you were a man, it would be you.
Well,
you would have been a
Gracchus
great
you would
emperor.
be.
Gracchus talks about even
Everybody.
like everybody bends to her will kind of a thing.
Yes, and one of the greatest heroines of all time is going to be in my next Ridley Scott movie. Like this is something that he
Spoilers.
does
Yeah.
all the time,
Yeah.
and I love it.
Yeah. Consistently good at it as well.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that something that I want to talk about, and it becomes more evident the further we go into the movie, is it's actually my super dump. And it is how consistently in this movie that is on such a grand scale, we get these weird close-up shots that aren't allowing anybody to interact with what's going on around them. It's the only thing that really truly bothers me about this movie.
Okay.
And it's the number of times that we get like a screen full of face or a screen full of ankles during a walk or something that is so close and not in a small, intimate way, more in a, well, back up, let me get some space kind of a way.
Interesting.
And
I always say interesting because I get it. There's a dump on that too, but that was one of the things that to me, coming in and like Ridley Scott's my guy, I want to just find stuff that's consistent with him. I feel like that's something he does a lot.
I think he does it a lot, but I think this is the time when it felt like it had the least utility to me.
Absolutely.
Like I feel like other times, in a movie like an Alien or a Blade Runner, it's to create claustrophobia, or in other places it's to communicate something. And here I felt like it almost was just like zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. Let me see what's happening.
Interesting.
And it just, I noticed it about halfway through the movie. I was like, that's what's bothering me. And it was enough to where I really thought about it a lot. So yeah, that's my super dump.
Gotcha. So we have those two interact, and Commodus has decided like what Rome needs is just a big old Super Bowl for 150 days. So it's 150 days straight of fighting in the Colosseum.
Yep.
And so one of the first fights that we see is Maximus has made his way to the Colosseum, which, by the way, I won't spend too much time on it. I did get to visit the Colosseum last fall. And it's amazing. Like, I mean, it's a wonder of the world, right? So it's got all the hype in the world that you could possibly have as a structure, but it doesn't make sense that this was even a thing. Like the fact that they built this. And Hansu has a line, his character has a line. He's like, how can man do this? And I'm sure that's what people thought for a long time. And I'm sure even in Rome in that time, they just probably took it for granted. They're like, it's here, it's always been here, Colosseum. But it was a massive, massive thing. They do depict it a little bigger than the actual size that it is. But that doesn't take away from the grand scale of it. It still would have been about a 50,000 seater in ancient
insane.
Rome. And so we come into this fight and he puts on, do you think they knew how iconic this helmet was going to be?
I kind of think they did.
I think they probably hoped.
Yeah. Well, it worked. He just picks this thing. It's like he knew in the moment, like people are going to love this for a long time. People are going to be remember. Like that's one of the main, if you were to pick like a really dumbed down scene or prop or anything to represent Gladiator, it might be this helmet. And he only wears it.
I think it'd be the chest piece for me.
A couple times with the horses for Spaniard. But we go into this battle. This is the one that is the Barbarian Hood.
Yeah.
So we've got that
guy's voice is ridiculous.
Amazing. This is actual eyebrows.
Yes.
That's his eyebrows.
Serious?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Way to go, dude. He's like, no, check this. He did that for his grandkids. Like, and they were like,
can this be part of my thing? Can this be part of my thing?
Yeah, I can do this. So we get, and there's all this like hush hush stuff, whisperings, which is such a Rome thing. The 42 stabs of Caesar and all that stuff. And so guys like Falco and some of the other guys in the Senate are already kind of like, can Commodus even do this?
But and the crazy thing about Falco is like his side B is so fast and he just teleports across the stage.
The down B for
the down B does
the
that good
reflector at him
smash too, which is good.
Oh gosh, I don't know why I just got that. Smash Bros. So this battle's really cool, and this is
my favorite battle.
Maximus being a general. And there was even someone who mentions that they fought under him, right? They're like, I was under your command at whatever. And then we have the chariots come out, and it doesn't really go as was hoped, as was planned for the show. The barbarians,
of Maximus's command,
which
is what I love.
Yeah, the barbarians win. And it's a really, really cool scene.
That girl gets cut in half by a sword on a chariot.
Yeah,
that is brutal.
Unbelievably wild.
You know what feels more brutal? The guy who got like the chariot that was on its side and his head just gets
against the edge of the Colosseum.
Yes,
yeah, that's
people
a big
are just
squish.
And I think it's such an interesting look at what was very likely in terms of like the kind of stuff that would happen at the Colosseum is like somebody's dead. I want to see and like looking over.
Let me look at it.
Right.
Yeah.
What a crazy time.
Yeah.
Crazy time.
Yeah.
And so probably top 3 biggest scenes of the whole movie happens at this point to where it's over.
Maximus
Commodus wants to meet.
Meridius.
Yeah. Father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife.
Yes. So good.
Let's say top 50 iconic minutes of screen time in all movies, maybe.
It's huge.
Oh yeah.
It really is. And Joaquin Phoenix continues to everything so well. Because you want to put yourself in his place and be like, okay, he needs to act as if he thought this dude was dead, except there's 50,000 people watching.
Right.
And he kind of pulls that off. And so it's just,
I love
just to
Russell
see
Crowe
everyone's
in this
reaction.
movie, but I'm telling you, I watch for Joaquin. And like he's stealing scenes with
amazing.
the leads.
Yeah.
And he consumes all around him in this movie to me.
Yep.
It is unbelievable.
He's not sure what to do. Like immediately he wants to kill him, which by the way, so the whole thumbs up, thumbs down thing, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Ridley and the producers, they produced it because they were just like, I just don't think, I don't want to have to confuse people with that. But then obviously later everybody gets real smart and has Google. And then they're like, but wait, no.
Sure.
It's supposed to be the other way around. But also a little more about Commodus. So as a ruler, he was the Gladiator Emperor, I think is what he was called. And so Commodus would actually go down and fight. But these things, unbeknownst to Commodus, the gladiators that he would fight against would being wounded in a way that we see towards the end of the movie. And he's actually killed by a gladiator in like essentially what would be the locker room before a fight. Narcissus.
Yeah, poisoned actually by Narcissus.
Yeah.
This is a myth, but people take it to be real. The toilets are referred to as commodes because of Commodus.
How funny.
Because the Roman people eventually hated him so much by the end of his rule that they were naming their toilets after him.
Which gives us at first I was going to dump kind of to the end, which we'll get there, but that gives more of a reason as to why the end was allowed to happen in terms of the end of our antagonist.
Sure.
But after this fight, Commodus has decided, I can't just kill him right now. Like, people are going to assume things because we get a battle, though. So his idea at this point is we have this battle for him to fight Tigris, who is this ancient, like...
legend.
And by the way, the only undefeated gladiator ever is like how he's introduced, but like Proximo got his freedom and he was a gladiator.
Yeah.
And he's alive. So
I don't understand the only undefeated gladiator.
Yeah, that was tough for me too. But
anyway, the tiger fight is awesome.
The real tigers, which is really cool. And production actually had an easier time than they thought they would with these tigers. They were kind of having to rile them up a little bit to get some action from them because they kind of became semi-docile and were just kind of cool with it. They were just living.
See, that's the thing, man.
That's how I am too.
I'm in this place where I want a dog so bad, but when I saw those tigers, I was like, I would have a tiger.
Dude,
I would pet a tiger.
I'll have a tiger.
I'll take one. If everybody else is having some tigers,
the doors, the like hidden doors that bring the tigers up,
real stuff,
is not out of the ordinary for the Colosseum.
Same with the elevator.
They used to even have ship battles in the Colosseum. They would flood the Colosseum floor and have like battles between ships. Like this place
so
was wild beyond imagination.
Yep.
And so this is a great fight too. And it's kind of tough to pick what the best battles are. This one's up there for me sometimes when I watch it because I also love just the costume won an Oscar for this. And so the helmets especially are just so cool. And Tigris's helmet is super, super cool. That kind of pulls down with the little teardrop on the side.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But Maximus has the opportunity to kill him.
Yes.
Does not. Now he's getting shouts of Maximus the Merciful. Super backfire for Commodus.
Sure.
Now he's even more rage tears. Like very mad. And this is the most pouty that he gets.
Yeah.
I think. Super, super pouty. And then before we get to the final battle, like what is some good setup between here, like some scenes that we should hit on?
So to me, the most important things that are happening between this point and our ending point are simply that at every turn, there is nothing that Commodus can do to turn the people against Maximus because of Maximus's virtue. It all comes back to that conversation at the beginning with Marcus Aurelius. It is Maximus is so virtuous that it is impossible to not like him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
because of that, his people are beginning to turn on him. People like Connie and what's the guy's name?
Gracchus.
Gracchus.
So there. I mean, we can kind of brush over this. There's a whole story of. It's incest. I mean, Commodus wants to be married to his sister.
Yes.
And
everybody knows you can't play Wii Sports with people that you have the same dad as.
Yeah, it's a parental control thing on the system. So there's that. And so that's another layer as to why he dislikes Maximus, just because Connie is so clearly interested in Maximus, and Maximus is still like, no, care more about my wife that his past. So whatever. I feel like the only character that we really haven't mentioned at all that kind of sets these things in motion here at the end is Cicero.
Yeah.
Chibs from Sons of Anarchy, if you've ever watched that.
This is Danny Flanagan?
This is Danny Flanagan.
Do you know how he got those scars?
Flanny Danigan.
He was a knife attack outside of, he was DJing at a nightclub and got attacked and stabbed several times in the face.
Man.
Yeah. Well, that's the type of attack that Joker's scars are based on.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's called a Glasgow smile or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
I guess we should talk a little bit about Lucian too, because Lucian is the son, Connie's son, because he's kind of a big play for Commodus in terms of, because she's got a real fear that he's going to.
I read that people interpreted Commodus as like being
And
Wii Sports attracted to his nephew. I
had
didn't
never
get that
thought
at
that.
all.
I think that was for him to show Connie like you should kind of be afraid.
100%.
Because he's always
And
hurt
I
him.
think it's also like if the root of his motivation
Is
is
fatherhood.
my father never loved
Bingo.
me. He has a totally warped view of fatherhood.
Bingo.
So he's trying to be a dad to this little boy.
Bingo.
Yeah. So I
That's
never
exactly
thought
how
that
I
too.
read it. But I've read that people were like, "Oh, Commodus is leaning that way." I didn't get that
No,
at
I think
all.
that's implied with Gracchus.
Is it?
I think that right. Isn't that implied with his servant? Did I totally misread that?
Maybe I just didn't pay attention to that. I've never picked that up before.
Yeah.
Rome be crazy though.
Rome is crazy.
Rome be nasty too.
Yeah. Rome is strange. So yeah, all this stuff is set up, and now there's a developed plan to get Maximus out.
Yes.
Maximus also, like, I can get word to all of my soldiers. You could have 5,000 strong. Connie's like, wait, many of them have sworn to Commodus. And he was like, no. Like, when they see me alive, you'll see their opinions change. And we believe him because we're like, yeah,
And
100.
the Cicero, how are they looking? And fat and bored,
Yeah.
ready to do this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
that.
Love it.
Cicero's death is so sad to me.
Mm-hmm. On the horse.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that is such a brutal way to go.
Yeah. It's just bad. And everything's falling apart. And Maximus is caught. And I think there's several times in here that Maximus is just ready. He's just waiting for death. Like anytime they come from the prison to grab him or anything like that, he's like, cool. Like he's saying a prayer in front of the figurines.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm gone. Like, see you later.
And yet we're back to the Colosseum.
We're back to the Colosseum. And we have the scene where he is chained up. And all the other gladiators. Do they want you to feel like they're watching this happen? The other gladiators that are behind bars, because we see Hansu and like other stuff in the
big room. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I think so.
Underground.
I think it's making an example.
Yeah, and so by the way, we lost Turbo Man to the fight. We
did.
In the where they're held.
Down.
It took him. It was a Boromir's death. It was. Many an
Took
arrow.
a lot of lances.
Took a lot of lances.
A couple pokies.
He took a lot of lives with him on the way down.
He did.
So we have just wonderful. The writing is just amazing, and I think it's because I had, like Jordan was referring to, like I saw this as younger, but then as I'm older is when I start to appreciate the dialogue more.
Yeah.
In terms of how well written this is.
The entire final about 10 minutes of this movie are basically perfect.
Really, really good. But he gets a little kidney stab. And it's like it's time for us to go fight. And man, if you already
is it kidney? Is that what it was supposed to be?
I don't know what it is.
I assumed it was heart
I think it's up under the ribs.
because it's like pumping.
I think it's right here.
Because by the time he gets out, it's already dripping down to his ankles.
Really?
Yeah. By the time he gets into the Colosseum,
I thought it was like his back. I thought he got stabbed in the back.
I don't know.
Because it was of the hug, so he stabs.
Either
him in the back.
way,
It's
either
either
way,
what the breastplate
pretty-
covers.
It's really bad. Yeah, make sure it's covered up.
it is a mortal owie.
Yeah, mortal owie. And so surrounded by soldiers, we just have them one-on-one. And so this is Commodus's idea. And we kind of get an allusion to earlier that he's at least got some chops in being able to
absolutely.
fight. And in the history of that, like Commodus could do some sword fighting type stuff. And so even with a mortal wound,
Mortal owie. Thank you.
mortal owie, it's a good fight.
Yeah,
it
really
wasn't like
is.
a WWF. I don't want
It
to
is nearly
negate
silent.
it down to that. It is nearly
I don't
silent.
think there's any music.
There's no music.
And it's just swords and Gemeril Lagasse's bam, 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 bam,
Gemeril.
with every hit.
But so the audience, it's funny just to kind of hear their reaction because there's like cheering at first, and I think there's boos at Commodus at this point. Like he's like, okay, well, I need to kill
He's
him.
fighting their hero.
Yeah, and it just felt like it was hopeless because what if Commodus wins? Are people going to respect him more ultimately? But either way, we start to get flashes of the afterlife already, which is clearly showing that Maximus is dying. And then finally, it's almost a simultaneous kill. It's like one of those things like with your final breath, like you threw a sticky grenade in Halo, like years and years ago.
Yep.
Sniped, but you also got them. You got stuck by.
Yep.
They both
Retribution.
Retribution. They both go down, and running out first is Connie and Lucian, right? Lucian's there too. Now, what happens though, and this is what we were referring to earlier, is we're kind of letting it happen because Commodus is asking for his sword before he dies.
And his soldiers are not helping.
The soldiers are not helping.
Yeah.
And so, and this is a Rome kind of.
Well, and the soldier that denies
thing.
him the sword is the same soldier that arrested Commodus at the beginning of the movie.
Yep.
Arrested Maximus.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Arrested Maximus at the beginning of the movie.
I was like, I don't remember that.
So
The
Commodus,
director's cut.
and I love his costume for the final, just to be all white.
Oh, yeah.
And he's about as pale as the white armor that he's
for real.
wearing. He's just so slimy. But they're both gone. Maximus' last words is Lucian safe?
Yeah.
Which again just shows just how honorable he was.
Well, and it juxtaposes Commodus's misunderstanding of what a father is and Maximus excelling at being one. You know, in their in their dying moments together. I mean, it's pretty stark, the contrast.
Yep, 100%. And so we see in the scene to where he's in the afterlife that's exactly what it was. He opens the door. Even kind of before he died, he was kind of motioning because he's seeing this stuff. He doesn't know what reality is in the afterlife. And it's just a long road in this beautiful field, and his wife and son are welcoming him
into Elysium.
Yes, and into Elysium. And the scenes throughout, and it's the scene that ends it for us, but we have Hansu burying the figurines kind of figuratively. And then he says, I'll see you again, but not yet, which was another wonderful line throughout. And then we have, stuff, it's Hans Zimmer, so it felt kind of Lion King towards the end. It almost felt like we would have that Simba running back to Pride Rock kind of music here.
Music.
And it's still, it's like Hans Zimmer's greatest hits are just Gladiator. It's like everything he ever used before and would use after. And then it kind of comes to a close. There's also, the powerful scene, like Lucian walking up, who will help me? Like, I'm going to carry him out was another really powerful, because all the gladiators show up. And then that's just kind of the end.
Man, it's so good. The ending is, I think you said it earlier, the ending, like the last 10 minutes are just perfect.
Yeah.
Just beat to beat, second to second. Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely perfect.
And another one of his last words are, return, like Rome is going to have like a reawakening and stuff, and everything that were the promises that he would have given Marcus Aurelius, which, spoiler, Rome falls pretty soon after that. But
now I don't want to, I know we got to wrap up here, but it would be a mistake to end this episode without asking, like, what does this movie mean to you, Carter?
This was for me, this movie meant that there could be like heart and substance in a action movie. Like it was like a war movie. And this is the reason that I did not like how much people liked 300.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Gerard Butler,
All style, no
CGI.
substance.
Yes, absolutely. Really cool scenes, stuff I've never seen before. Pump, Zack Snyder, way to go. That was fun. But like no substance to it. And again, too, this doesn't feel like something that is, and it was a props to Ridley Scott for me, because this does not happen often. And when it does, it's iconic in movies.
Special.
Yeah.
Your Patriot, your Braveheart, your Gladiator. And then I'm going to separate that from like the Saving Private Ryans of the world and stuff too. But by the way, Ridley Scott did that too with Black Hawk Down. So like it was just different, and it's not easy to do.
Right.
And so for him to do that, and this is in 2000, most of his hits have been sci-fi.
Yeah.
Like absolutely, and way out there kind of stuff. So the 1984 Apple commercial where the lady runs with the sledgehammer and throw, that's Ridley Scott directed that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so this is like, he's just iconic on that kind of stuff. And then just to kind of be like, I'm going to do a war epic. But again, though, he tries again. That's a fun thing about Ridley Scott is he'll do Robin Hood later. He'll do Kingdom of Heaven later. And it just doesn't go as well. But something happened here that I don't think is ever going to be forgotten. 12 Oscar nominations, 5 wins. Not that holds, much weight on what's my favorite movie ever, but it's a top 10 movie for me for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it's time to rate this movie.
Before we rate the movie, Carter, thanks for Gladiator.
Thanks for Gladiator, Carter.
Oh, you're welcome for Gladiator.
I know it's very vulnerable to bring a movie that you love and try
You
and
did a great job in show and tell.
talk about it. Yeah,
Thank you.
Good job. You can put it back in your backpack now. Great job.
We put it on the fridge.
It's time to rate this movie.
Yay.
And we here at Two Chunks and a Hunk have developed the scientific cinema scale to help us with just that. And it is as follows. The best thing we can ever say about a movie is own it. Don't lend it.
Buy that poster.
The next best thing is going to be buy it. After that is rent it. That's followed by stream it and then forget it. And last, but certainly least, the worst thing we can ever say about a movie. God has forsaken us.
Makes sense for me to go first.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of it's assumed. This is a buy the poster for me.
Sure.
For the stuff that you just asked me. There's just so many things that were done really well. And I love to, another thing, like what this meant to me was looking back and appreciating Ridley Scott more is that grittiness is like Ridley Scott doesn't have Wii Sports scenes in his movie.
Right.
If anything, there's a like allusion to, and his quote on that is, Wii Sports is boring unless you're doing it. And so he's like, I just don't have that in my movies. And that's also a pump for me in terms of why I think there's so many strong female characters, because we don't get the objectification that leads to that.
Sure.
But
Yes.
buy the poster for me.
Cool.
Man.
And I'm not going to take we talked about this,
the
right?
Thing that's hard because there's a part of me to be like, yeah, dude, you're right. Buy the poster. But I think I'd give it a buy it.
Yeah.
This movie is fantastic. Absolutely phenomenal. Again, for all the reasons that we mentioned. It just doesn't quite tip over into poster territory.
Yeah. I get it.
I would also give it a buy it. Again, I don't want us to get bogged down in is buy it bad because it's not by that poster. Like buy it is the second best rating we can give a movie.
Yeah.
Like
Carter,
keep that stuff in mind.
Watch in my head. I'm like, you better wait till next week, sucker.
I'm gonna tank your movie.
The whole time I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess.
I guess it's okay. But yeah, no, I think it's such a good movie. It is fantastic. And I think that it's one that it's managed to stand the almost 20-year test of time. It's going to keep doing it.
That's wild.
For sure. And I think when we preface too about, this is much more about the directors. It's not it's hard to even try and make sense to say it's more about the directors than the movies.
Right.
But it's like, we are picking two, and it was really tough picks for all of us, but we're trying to pick two to show the breadth of what the director can do. And there's probably even a scenario to where I could have picked something to be like this, but I buy it. I don't buy the poster. And that's a possibility in any of this, because I hope this promotes conversations between the chunkies of what your favorite director is.
Yeah.
Like find the things that are, because I think that's so fun to do, because you're going to go and find some stuff that you haven't seen before and stuff that you didn't know about. Like he made the Apple commercial. And I'm like, well, that does make sense. But I'm not offended by buy it.
Yeah.
Let's see it, guys.
So make sure you tune in next week to hear us talk about the movie that I am bringing, the very first one from Denis, and that movie is Prisoners.
Prisoners.
Were we supposed to say that with you?
I don't know.
Prisoners.
I thought we were. That's
I
fine.
feel good about what just happened.
Sure.
Very excited. So make sure you tune in for that. And to end this week's episode, I'd like for us each to say our name and which Disney villain we would replace Commodus with in this movie. I'm Jordan Wonders, the principal from a Goofy movie.
Oh my gosh. Love it.
Science slumber parties.
What?
I'm Doge, and I would replace him with Lotso Huggins Bear
Ooh.
From Toy Story?
from Toy Story 3 because he is dastardly and diabolical.
I'm
Am I
Carter,
not merciful?
and I'll replace him with someone who was just down the street, or would I say just down in general? Hades.
Nice.
It's already in the period.
Nice.
Kind of, so it's kind of. I'm looking at the Greek mythology like wizard over here, and I'm like, never mind. He's pulling out his book, and I'm like, no. Hades is not
One's
from this
Roman,
time. He's
but
kind of immortal, so he's there.
You say Pluto.
Pluto.
The dog.
The dog.
Mickey's
Yeah, I
dog.
was like, that's also Disney. I don't remember him being a villain.
so good.
Wait, does he? He's not like a Pokemon.
No, he is. That Mickey's just,
He doesn't say